This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jespersen.
Oh, boy. Real Talkers, we're grateful to have you here. If you're listening to this on the podcast, thank you, by the way, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, on iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to go straight to our interview with Alberta Education Minister Demetrios Nicolaides, you can skip ahead basically an hour if you're hanging out with us live on the Real Talk live stream presented by California Closets on YouTube and all the other social media platforms. Stick around. The show's going to feel a little bit different. We're going to talk to the education minister about an hour in. That's his availability, and we want to talk to him about this book ban, so some people are calling it. The Alberta government obviously is looking to the public. They're polling the public, parents in particular, but members of the public, of course, are welcome to participate in this online. What are they doing? They're seeking information from the public on what the public thinks about controversial or explicit books included in school libraries, in particular in K-9 school libraries. We've talked to a couple of librarians and experts in the field on the show, and of course we want to get the minister's take on this as well. It's also a great opportunity for those of you that are going to be checking out the live stream. You're in our live chat powered by Park Power. You can get your questions in there, and we'll be getting as many questions in front of the minister as we can in the time that we have with him. That's coming up about an hour into today's episode. I've obviously got a lot of questions prompted by some of your notes to us, your emails to talk@ryanjespersen.com, and we'll get to some of those today. One from Johnny, which is really good. Not the producer of this show, but another Johnny, Real Talker Johnny, who's written in. He calls our episode with the library experts, with the curriculum experts, straw man arguments. He says that basically we're not seeking the other side. He says we're in an echo chamber. But then John signs off with a bit of an olive branch, and I actually really like the emails, so we're going to get to that too. Plus, we'll get to your live comments along the way. But what everybody's talking about in our home city, and I think what a lot of people are going to be talking about across Canada right now, is a remarkable comeback by the Edmonton Oilers in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. It doesn't matter one bit that this is not a sports podcast, that this is not a hockey talk show. I think everybody is paying attention to the Edmonton Oilers' quest to win their first Stanley Cup in 35 years. Johnny Infamous, of course, has been watching it all from the moss pit. And last night, Johnny, as you were spinning the tunes, surrounded by several thousand people, I have to imagine there were moments. I texted you at one point. I asked what the tension felt like there in the fan park as the Oilers went down 3-1 early in the second period. People thought this is not how this is supposed to go. What a wild, emotional ride through Game 1, which ended, of course, with 30 seconds left in the first overtime period.
Yeah, it was an amazing game. No, it wasn't tense at all. People were in great spirits. It was party time in there. I think people have a lot of belief this year, and the cup was in the building. It was It was great to see it there. And I don't know, people keep saying this, it's a different team this year. Maybe not a different team, but last year, Leon was banged up. We think Connor was banged up. Skinner was having some sort of issue, whether it was mental or whatever. But this year they just seemed dialed in. And then, everyone. I even said I was like, this is gonna go 7. I honestly, in my heart, thought maybe Florida would take the first game. But now I wake up this morning and then you see the predictions were about 70-30 for the Panthers to win, and this morning, boom, everything flips. Now it's like I'm putting up something on the screen for our YouTube viewers.
You're talking, this is series predictions on who's going to win the series?
Yeah, who's going to win the cup.
Wow, look at that.
It's
60%.
Already flipped to 60-40 for the Oilers.
So you and I think maybe probably, what a big part of what we could do today is just start planning the parade, because once you've won Game 1, it's just the rest is just smooth sailing.
I'm not one of those superstitious guys who's like, you can't plan the parade. First of all, you have to plan the parade ahead of time. Okay. There's already people now who are making, within the OEG, who are making preliminary plans. But once you get close, when you're a game away, last year when it was Game 7, not to pull the curtain back, but we already knew the day it was going to be on. and we were starting to make plans because you just have to. You have to alert the RCMP of your route and the EPS. You have to get security in place and ready. You have to get everything going. So,
yeah 100%,
you have to.
100%.
You literally have to plan.
Emotionally, I'm not going to let myself get there yet. I will say, check this out. I'll show my Instagram story here on the screen. This was managed to find our way into the rink last night. Me and Wyatt, 9 years old. He was obviously just absolutely jacked to be there. But I'll tell you, when the Edmonton Oilers skate out to Enter Sandman, of course, that classic Metallica tune and the pyro's going. And like you said, the Stanley Cup is out there on the ice for the anthems, and everybody is just absolutely pumped up. There was kind of a scoreboard feature, this graphic, and it's one of these kind of get loud things. You and I have seen many of these, and it starts. It goes get beat LA loud, and everyone starts going crazy, and then it goes get beat Vegas loud, and it gets a little louder. Then it goes get beat Dallas loud, and then all of a sudden get Stanley Cup Final loud, and everybody just goes absolutely berserk. Beautiful first goal, nice early goal from Leon Draisaitl, and of course the Oilers go up 1-0, and everybody starts getting excited, and then the Florida Panthers remind you why they're the defending Stanley Cup champions and why they've made quick work in some of their series is because this is obviously a very good team, but the veteran leadership on the Oilers last night I think was on display. Like, big performances, including by Draisaitl, the opening goal, and of course the game winner in overtime. And I don't know, just steady goaltending by Stuart Skinner, which is what everybody wants from him. He's squaring off against the $10 million man, Sergei Bobrovsky, the big star for the Florida Panthers. But Stu was steady, and it was like the crowd is just every time he's making a big save, just the Stu, everybody's just with him. It was an incredible vibe in there, man. You're really, really exciting. And I think people, it was funny. I think sometimes when a game goes to overtime, there is a little bit of nervousness, obviously.
Oh, of course. It's anyone's game.
It's anybody's game. But like on the concourses last night, it was just, man, oh man. And like you and I can hear it in our studio here. I think most people know that our studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse right across the street from Rogers Place. And so like, what was it yesterday at maybe 11 in the morning or noon or something like that on game day, you've got like, the cars with the big, huge flag. I'm not talking the car flags. Good for everybody with the car flags. I'm talking the 4x6 foot or bigger flags. There was this guy that had a classic Barracuda, like one of my favorite classic muscle cars, this beautiful Barracuda with a massive Oilers flag coming out of the back, everybody with their faces painted. Like, it is really happening. It's
crazy.
Here. It's incredible what it does for a city.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We're talking to our friends from the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce, the bars, the restaurants, the retail, the hotels. Like, you can't. I think you'd be in tough to try to get a hotel room in Edmonton right now. Downtown for sure.
They're booked full. Our friend Panita McBride over at the Downtown Business Association said she's never seen this in 5 years. Where like there is literally no vacancy. It's not just people out of town. It's people from surrounding areas in Alberta who are like, I want to be here. I want to be here the whole, not one day, 1 week. I want to be here the whole month. I'm going to set up shop. And, yesterday I went outside and got lunch, and then I had to go over and get my pass at around noon, and I came out at like 12:15, 12:30, and there's kids lined up for the moss pit. It's 12:30 in the afternoon. I wouldn't be surprised if there's tents out there when I go.
It opens at what time? Like 4 o'clock or something?
It opens at 5.
5.
The gates are at 5, so I wouldn't be surprised if I see people tenting out tonight for ahead of Friday's game, because the weekend games are always a little more. The vibes are a little higher. The lines are a little longer. Everything's a little more packed. So tomorrow, Friday, and then who knows? Maybe Oilers will sweep, but if we get to the following week, there's the Saturday game, game 5, which I'm guessing is going to be just probably the game 5 in Edmonton. If we're up 3 games, is going to be absolutely insane. But yeah, Stuart Skinner, I was really impressed with him last night, and I'm just impressed with the Oilers. Like pretty much halfway through the second to the end. That's why I wasn't really nervous in overtime. They were just like the shots. We were leading in shots. They were calm. They were making, you can see that they're doing the little things, right? They're not making mistakes. So when we went to overtime, I was like, I'm just waiting for the 1-2 punch, the McDavid to Draisaitl, and then it happens. But I will say, there were a few times in the second period where I love Stuart Skinner, but he likes to like come out of his net and stop the puck and then pass it in interesting and I'll say creative ways sometimes. And I don't yell at him, but I'm like, Stewie, get back in your home. Go back to your home.
The guy that I was sitting next to in the stands, didn't know him. We became pretty fast friends, a hilarious guy there with his whole family. I'm always also, by the way, just to be tacky, I didn't ask anybody, but I'm looking around at all these folks that have like full family units at these games. I'm like, I think this is instead of going to Disneyland. I think that's like, you're looking at the ticket prices, it's wild. But the buddy beside me was just hilarious. Like, might as well have been Paul Maurice or Chris Knobloch. Like, he was just had so much coaching for the players, just raining down his advice. And,
everyone's a sideline coach.
And it was so
right?
funny, too, because, like, every time Stuart Skinner would leave his crease, Buddy was doing the exact same thing. He's like, Stu, what are you doing?
It makes me nervous. He's one of those guys, and everyone has their quirks. Like, every goalie has their thing, and that's one of his where, like, maybe it's like a security thing. He likes to calm the puck down. He likes, like, when it's flying around the wall, he'll race back there, stop it, put it down. He'll look around. He'll make an interesting pass, which is great because 9 times out of 10 it works. But it's that one time when he gets caught and he has to run back and slide and save. And, it gets me. My heart sinks.
Oh, yeah, buddy. It's, I love this from Tommy Temper. Tommy, thanks for the Super Chat contribution. He says, let's all agree that the Oilers need to win.
Oh, they got to win.
He says, Tommy says he was flying a big flag out of his car window. I absolutely love Tommy. Please tell me, was that your purple Barracuda? If that was yours, bro, you got to come give us a ride. That car was unbelievable. But the extra effort that people are putting in to their rigs, and I guess that's kind of a play on words too, because like half of them have oil derricks on them too. These cars,
yeah, some of them are a little.
Well, part of me is like, how are you not getting pulled over?
Because they're decrepit.
I'm
like, dude,
we're trusting that these people have properly secured these massive oil derricks on the backs of their trucks and cars. But I love it. I saw one yesterday, big oil derrick in the back of not an El Camino, but something along those lines, and then like the big goal light on the top, and I was like, this is just extra.
I saw one in like a beat up gray like Ford older F-150, and I was like, there's got to be like laws against this. Like there's got to be, these people have to be, they're driving around yelling like crazy, and he's got it secured with like those, I know it's like what you move a mattress with or whatever, you put the straps on it.
Yeah,
but still, when it's 5, 6, 7, some of these things are like 10 feet off your truck bed. Like I just see these guys going under like a low overpass or into a parking lot and just destroying their trucks.
So I'm taking a look at some. Just taking a look at some updated numbers. We don't endorse any gambling site, at least not right now. But this is just one that I'm using. Coolbet.com, just taking a look at it. So they've got the final game of the series. If you're going to go with the Game 4 sweep, it's at plus 550.
Yeah, it's gone down a bit.
Yeah,
right?
It's gone down like almost by what was it, like plus 1,600 at the beginning?
It was something.
Well, that was an
almost
Oilers
3x.
Exactly right. So plus 250 Game 5. So if you think it'll go in $500 bet, will pay you back 250. Interesting. I don't know. It's kind of. I will say this: there were a lot of people. Let's see what Connor's Conn Smythe odds are at. Still, minus 159. They got Connor winning the Conn Smythe, Leon in second, Bobrovsky in third. A lot of stuff can happen between now and then.
We were talking about Conn Smythe, and after last night, I tend to agree with some of the other people we were with at that table when we were attending downstairs at the new place, the Den.
Yeah, the Den. Shout out to our buddies.
I just watched last night, and I'm like, man, Leon's going to get the Conn Smythe. I mean, opening goal, game-winning goal. I'm just watching his like, lots of people say like he doesn't back check and stuff. Dude, he's defensive now.
He was 5th or 6th in Selke voting.
Dude, he's his game is just, it's another level this year.
It was not Tommy's Barracuda, by the way, he says, but Tommy actually is driving what I absolutely desperately wanted when I was in high school. Henry Wisewood, 1992, class of 95. Shout out to them. Yeah. Can you believe that we're observing our 30th high school anniversary, our high school graduation? It is the 30th year this year, and I'm a little bit disappointed. And I have nothing to complain about because I could just get off my ass and plan it.
Yeah,
nobody's doing a reunion. We did a reunion on the 10-year, we did a reunion on the 20-year, and now I guess I don't know, nothing on the 30.
Nah.
So everyone's kids will be groaning out of the house for the 40. We'll do the 40. But Tommy says his car is a 91 Mustang Cobra GT.
Ooh, that's still a nice
That
ride.
is a sick car.
You know what?
those early 90, those 5 liters.
My favorite cars are from obviously because I grew up in the 90s, but I love like that. Remember the Z24? I love the Z24s from the 90s. Bring those back. But,
yeah, 100%.
But don't put an oil derrick on
no,
it.
the 28s, Z28s. The 24s were the practical. They were like the Chevy Cavaliers.
Yeah, I'm talking. Put a spoiler on that.
You
Give
don't
me
want
one
the
of
Camaro?
those.
Wouldn't you want the
Who's
Z28?
got one for sale? Hit
the
me up.
IROC? Well, we
Email
are going to
me.
probably end up buying cars here because now it's turning into a. If you're just joining us, by the way, Education Minister Demetrios Nicolaides joining us in about 45 minutes. We're shooting the shit, having a good time this morning. We love shows like this. We'll get to your emails. But listen to this. Like Ben's, his first car, a 1981 Monte Carlo. There's another fantastic car. He says at the young age of 16, he says, talk about fun for a teenager. My uncle's a mechanic, and we completely rebuilt the motor. And I love this from Ken K. Yesterday, Ken, I'm assuming pre-game, he put $97. I like the symbolism.
Oh, okay.
Ken put $97. My buddy Finner, we were at the ranch yesterday, shot a 97. I said maybe that's a sign, Finner. He shot, anyway, Ken put 97 on the Oilers to sweep at 12-1 odds. He says it's a long shot, but why not? Ken, I 100% agree. Why not?
I was going to do that
Unless
too.
you can't afford to lose it, then don't do it.
I was going to do that too. And after last night's game, I'm like, well, you never know. Like this could just, but then you think like, they'd win in Florida, right? And I was talking to someone else yesterday and they're like, if they went up 3-rip, do you think they just lose game 4?
No, to win
and
at
I'm like,
home? No.
that is not how athletes think. They think, get this over with, get it done. They don't care where they win the cup as long as they win it.
100%.
Yeah.
And while we acknowledge that we are getting ahead of ourselves, we're getting way ahead of ourselves. There's
Yeah,
still
of course.
3 big wins that the Oilers have to make. We're not getting cocky.
No.
But we're also not overly superstitious. We can talk about certain things, although I would never say shutout before a goalie had a shutout. That's the one thing. I was talking to Wyatt about that. I was like, hey, the one thing, kiddo, I said we can talk about pretty much anything. Never say shutout if your goalie's working on a shutout. But the one thing that I'm very intrigued by, and here's a bet that I'm interested to make, and I've noticed the odds are fluctuating and changing a lot on this, and not in his favor. But we've been having this debate within our friend group. Who will be if the Edmonton Oilers are lucky enough, and it's not luck, it's skill, but it takes a little luck. You got to get some good bounces. If the Oilers are blessed enough to hoist Lord Stanley, who will the captain, Connor McDavid,
Pass it to?
And I thought I was super brilliant. I thought, well, I'm just like, I have insight that nobody else has. And I go, you got to go Nuge.
Yeah,
like
of
Nuge,
course,
first
yeah.
overall pick.
Never
Nuge,
trade
obviously.
Nuge.
You
Never trade
You
Nuge.
keep Nuge forever.
Yeah.
He's been here forever. He's been here through the darkest years, whatever. So I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to go put him. It's obviously got to be Nuge.
Of course.
Because everyone will think, well, maybe it'll be Leon, but it's got to be Nuge. And then I go look, and all the odds makers are like, well, it's obviously going to be Nuge. So the odds makers,
the odds makers were like,
makers have Nuge.
You're not on to something.
But it was interesting. It was last I looked, it was minus 450. In other words, you're not going to make much at all. It's not that very smart of a bet. But now it's at plus 150. It's coming up. So maybe they're thinking that maybe it's going to go to Leon first. I don't know.
Yeah,
we'll see.
But just an incredible evening yesterday. Got to open for the Arkells. They
How was
absolutely,
that?
Yeah. If you go to my Instagram, you can queue up the story. I've got a bunch of stuff there. Absolutely blew the roof off of Fan Park, which has now got that incredible stage. Oh, I said hi to my mom in this video. I sent
like
her
that.
a video.
You're such a good son.
I told the crowd to say hi to mom. There's the new bets out of DraftKings right there show that like pretty much all of North America is rooting for the Oilers. And then here's up on the Moss Pit. We threw the flag out again. We went live on Sportsnet. So cool that like nobody messes. Like they were just totally into doing that at that moment, like organized and everything. And then of course we had the mayor come up. He's always out there for a t-shirt. I don't say it like you, Jespo, when I do it.
T-shirt.
That's your thing.
There
But
you
yeah,
go,
gonna be, I'm hearing rumors, but obviously I'm not gonna disclose anything. But some big artists coming to Edmonton to be in that Fan Park with that. If you haven't been to Fan Park yet, and this isn't me saying don't go to the Moss Pit, because the Moss Pit's going to be packed anyways, but Fan Park, a little better for the older people, little older crowd, a bigger area, a bigger bar, easier to get drinks, but the stage production is absolutely incredible. If you go look at some pictures, the stage is just immense and amazing, and some stuff down the pipe about getting some big artists this year. I mean, last year, who's bigger than like Shania? Like all the obviously Canadian artists, right, Ryan? So
yeah.
Shania Twain, the biggest EDM artist in Canada, probably Loud Luxury. But and this isn't.
I don't want to put you in a tough spot. I want to ask you to spill the tea. And
no,
tell
I
us
don't have any tea.
Behind the scenes.
Even if I had the tea, I wouldn't spill it. But I will say who I would love to see, who didn't come last year, is Avril Lavigne. I would love to see Avril come
Could we afford
and throw
her,
a
do you
show.
think?
I don't know, or I don't even know what her schedule looks like. But that would be, for me, that'd be probably one that I would love to see.
We've got more car talk happening
And
here.
Nickelback, of course.
We've got the everybody's sharing. This is amazing. Everybody's like, Vamp says their first car was 1964 Chevy, a Biscayne, and then a Bel Air. When you were 13? What? Really? Scarlett's got her money on the cup getting handed to Leon first. I don't know. I just feel it's going to be Nuge.
Yeah.
Shane's was a 76 Firebird Formula 359 4-speed. Unbelievable. What was your first car? You get some insight into. That's not always insight.
I'm going to sound posh when I say this, but it was a Cadillac. It was a sedan. Yeah, it was
Really?
an older Cadillac sedan. So, yeah, it was a brown, older Cadillac sedan.
Four-door, obviously.
Yeah, four-door, yeah.
Yeah, friends piled in.
Yeah.
You obviously were driving very responsibly and safely. It's
Oh,
very,
of course.
Very practical
when you have a
choice.
Cadillac, when you're that age, you drive the speed limit all the time.
Yes. Probably a 350 V8 in that. It was probably just great on gas.
I thought it was cool. I thought I was like some young punk out of Goodfellas or something, driving around in a Caddy as his first car.
Yeah, I like that. Want to let people know, by the way, is all this talk about cars. We've got the the Real Talk Golf Classic coming up on the 19th of June, and we've got we're very proud of this. We're the only golf tournament, as far as I know, in the province of Alberta that has 4 $100,000 hole-in-one holes, and those are proudly presented by sponsors, which shall be properly feted, recognized, and celebrated on the day of and after the tournament. But 3 of these hole-in-ones are straight up cash. Like just a big check, John. So if you jar it, if you hit a hole-in-one at any of those 3 holes, you win $100,000 at the tournament. That's no strings attached. The 4th, courtesy of our friends at St. Albert Dodge, is the new 2025 Charger. They call it the General E. So it's like that General Lee. Everybody knows, like the Dukes of Hazzard car.
Problematic.
The Dukes of Hazzard car.
With the Confederate flag on it?
Yeah, we're not going there. Yeah, in 2025, they've pulled the Confederate flag off. But these are, honestly, man, the General E, it's the EV version. Okay. And we're going to be giving it away.
Wow.
Well, hopefully we're going to be giving it away if somebody hits a hole-in-one.
Is it orange and everything with the number and everything?
Orange 01.
Wow.
Like, it is like the Dukes of Hazzard car.
Yeah.
But it's an EV. Yeah. And so I was talking to the guys at Dodge about this, and we're going to have it parked on the hole. It's going to be right there on the tee box. And I said, how does this compare, like, to the actual Charger, the gas job, the EV? And he goes, buddy, the EV will smoke the gas job. Like, it is so fast.
Off the line, they're so much faster.
And they've
got those super boosts in them, some of them. And
considering considering EVs are basically silent,
there's
Charger,
no combustion going on.
So they have a button you can press, and it's like, and it like makes the noise, which is so great. But I was like,
for the ego.
Yeah. But I'm like, you obviously, if you're going to have a car like that, like, I think it's like, I don't know, like it's got to be in the 700-800 horsepower range. I mean, is that even how they measure it with EVs? I don't even know. I don't know enough about EVs.
That is so funny, though. It's like like wearing shoulder pads or like 3 T-shirts to make you look a little beefier. It's like I'm driving EV, but you hit the button.
Jillian says, by the way, that car should come with a pair of Daisy Dukes. I 100% agree. And maybe
I'd wear them.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll get you in Daisy Dukes at the tournament.
Maybe me and the Dukes.
Yeah, I don't know.
You in the plaid button up and.
Oh, I want to be Boss Hog. Can you go back and get your Cadillac, your first ever car, and I can drive? I chop the top off and put the big steer. The steer rack on the front.
I'm telling you, there's nothing more comfortable to tee off at a golf classic in than some Daisy Dukes.
Yeah, Kenzie says, "LOL, only you," or says you could only give it away. An EV General Lee. No, it's the General E. Kenzie shaking her head or shaking their head. No, her head, right? We know Kenzie. We get some insights into folks in the live chat. Some of you we know, some of you we think we know, but we don't know for sure. And it's wonderful to see. I love seeing all the new names in here as well. How about this from Pin Chaser? Very first car, a 1990 Chevy Corsica. Says it wasn't actually a great car, especially having to replace an engine when I had it for only a few years. I got rid of it shortly after. My very first car, my parents let me drive their car to school. I did not own it, but it was a 1980 Oldsmobile 98 Regency.
Classic.
Yeah, it was the classic black Oldsmobile, which was like, looking to those things, they're absolute boats, massive car.
Only thing better would have been the station wagon with the wood paneling.
I think
on
you're
the
right.
side.
I think you're right. The funny thing, too, is if you look at a 1980 Oldsmobile, you look at a picture of it now, it seems super old, but it's like, no, it was 1992. It wasn't actually that old. It was like a 12-year-old car. It's not that old. You know what I mean?
Of course.
First car I ever bought myself, 1991 Jeep Cherokee Sport. 5-speed, white with the black fender flares.
Nice.
Loved that Jeep. Yeah, called it Chief, which was fantastic. And then some of you were sharing about the new EVs out there. There's a new Lotus. Ken says there's a new Lotus.
Well,
that's
a nice EV.
A 2,000 horsepower EV. He says it might be the sexiest car of all time. But Ken goes on to say, of course, it is also $3 million.
Yeah. There's some wild, like, what do they call them? Design or whatever, creative cars or whatever that are EV now that are absolutely insane. Some of the wheels have like holograms on them that look like the wheels are like changing shape, and it's just wild what they're doing with that technology now. And I just can't wait till it's all a bit cheaper. So I will say right now, there are Canadian like EVs, like there are Cadillac EVs right now for under $50,000 that are absolutely, like, you look at them on YouTube and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, look incredible inside, have great mileage. I mean, well, for EVs, right? It's getting better and better, but I think the main problem here, and not to get off on EV talk, is we're hanging out. We can talk about whatever we need more places to plug in, especially like
Absolutely.
here in Alberta, because I'm considering, like, whenever this beauty of mine 2007 Pontiac Torrent that I'm driving around that has over 270,000 kilometers.
I'm proud of you for driving that, by the way, because
go.
you've made a practical and responsible choice.
100%.
You did.
My partner's driving a 2025 car. I'm driving a 2007. But whenever it dies, I'm going to get an EV. But the one thing I look at is the map. Every month I look at the map. Have they added any new ones? And it's like, if you wanted to take a road trip here to BC, you'd have to plan where you're going to stop and charge up. That's the only problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Giants for Life says they've got a set of those horns for the Boss Hog mobile, which, and actually I've got the Cadillac. I mean, if we're being real, if we're being serious, I have a 65 Cadillac. So all I need to do is chop the top off it. Yeah.
Thanks to Wise Kyle. Concept cars is what I was trying to get the word out.
Right.
Well, Wise Kyle, always wise in the chat.
Jillian's wondering, he says $3 million for a car? Like, does it come with, like, Idris Elba or, like, Ryan Gosling or something? Good question, for sure. Hey, and by the way, as we bring this back to the Oilers, I saw somebody here was wondering, somebody says, is it true that Stuart Skinner is actually from Edmonton, like born and raised? 100% he's an Edmonton kid. Born and raised Edmontonian, a dub kid. Played a long time for the Lethbridge Hurricanes and then won a WHL championship in Swift Current with the Broncos. So it's awesome to see the Edmonton kind of born and raised. Kulak, another example. You'd love to see them playing on the team that they grew up cheering for. That would be just an incredible opportunity. Alberta Ganger, we see you in the super chat. Thanks for the $5. Thanks for the beer. We appreciate it. Says, good morning, Real Talk. Says, can you please ask the Minister Nicolaides, who will be joining us in half an hour, for comment on the recall campaign against him? Absolutely 100%. We'll ask him about that. This is, if you check out our Friday episodes, or, of course, if you check out on our YouTube channel, Real Talk, Ryan Jespersen. Thanks to everybody that subscribes. We sure appreciate it. 33,000 and change now, I think, which is great. Or, of course, if you're a podcast subscriber, a special episode comes out every Saturday. It's usually about 5 minutes. The Flamethrower, presented by the DQs of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. You heard from Jenny, a Real Talker by the name of Jenny, who is inviting you to join the resistance on I think it was the most recent Flamethrower. And that's part of this Recall for Change movement in Calgary. This group is trying to get folks to sign a petition to meet that threshold that's required to recall MLAs in Alberta. And the group Alberta Resistance is targeting 3 UCP MLAs down in Calgary. They want to trigger recall legislation. It's always interesting for me to pay attention to this, John, because we talk about the petitions that are going around, and obviously these initiatives, people that want to trigger a referendum, for Alberta to separate from Canada. Excellent interview, by the way, in our most recent episode on the 4th of June with Dwayne Choman a longtime labor lawyer who I thought had really excellent insights into separation, what it looks like, the Clarity Act. Dwayne is certainly one of the sharper knives in the drawer, and he gave us great insights on that. But keep in mind, the way that it works when it comes to triggering referendums or triggering government action or triggering recalls or whatever, it's like it goes both ways, right? It's not limited to one group or one political ideology, people that can leverage or participate in democracy. That's what it is. And that's what this group is doing down in Calgary. We'll absolutely, definitely, of course, ask the minister about that. You know what I should probably do, John? 29 minutes in is remind everybody that this episode is happening with the presenting sponsorship of our friends at We Know Trading. And I know that they're not going to hate on us for this. We love these guys and we appreciate them. But We Know Trading online at WKT.ca. In a world where credentials and compliance really matters, especially in regulated industries, We Know Trading is building something bigger than just training courses. They're creating the infrastructure of trust. And that means when somebody says that they're certified, they could be working with seniors in a care home. They could be running a forklift. They could be out on the drill rigs, whatever it is. If they say they're certified, you can believe it because it's all backed by digital credentials that absolutely cannot be faked. And that's something that every industry needs right now, including with the public trust, right? You can learn more about what they're doing at We Know Training by checking out their website, WKT.ca. Oh, man. Family, we're heading out to Jasper this weekend. I'm very much looking forward to that, getting out there and just taking some time away. But I do have mixed feelings. I'm going to be real. I'm going to be honest. I do have mixed feelings about leaving the city of Edmonton on a Friday.
Oh, you're not going to?
As Game 2 is set to kick off. Is there going to be anything? I know you're questioning my decisions right now. But, we've had this reservation for a while, and we're looking forward to getting the kids out to the mountains. There's really nothing like once you're out there, kind of everything. And, hey, man, we'll just be, keep an eye out for us. If you're in Jasper, let us know. Hit me up on Instagram or Twitter because we're going to be around town. I'm not saying I'm going to make myself available to everybody. I'm just saying I am assuming that the town of Jasper, I'm assuming the town of Jasper is going to have just as much energy going on as the puck drops on Game 2 on Friday.
I was out there.
Too, right?
I was out there last weekend. I was like, man, Oilers license plates, Oilers flags were out.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy is like now, like I think most of Canada, I don't want to say all, but it'd be great to do research after, but most of Canada is like they want the cup to come here, aside from Vancouver, right? And
yeah, real talker Jennifer was in touch with the show, by the way, cheering for the Panthers, letting us know she's cheering for the Panthers.
But there's, I know there's a percentage of people who just hate certain teams, and that's just how it is. They don't want them to win. I'm sure if the Flames were going to win the cup, there'd be people who wanted them to win, and a lot of people in Edmonton who wouldn't. But even Leafs fans, family members I know in Ontario, I saw my cousin she had a Leafs flag at their farm up for years.
Yeah.
And she put up a post yesterday and she switched it to an Oilers flag.
Wow.
So I think there's a lot of support across Canada right now for this team. Not just that, not so much like, hey, we want this team to win, but just it'd be nice. Gosh darn it. How long's it been? 31 years since the Oilers won it. How long since?
No,
the Canadian,
35.
Sorry,
yeah,
35.
the Oilers won
but
in 90.
In Canada, it was what?
The Montreal Canadiens won in 93.
Yeah, so it's just to get it back here in the country and have, because and no disrespect to the Florida Panthers, who are an incredible team and won the cup, but those celebrations they had in Florida are nothing compared to what the city of Edmonton will do for an entire summer if we win the Stanley Cup.
What are we going to do if we don't win the Stanley Cup?
Well, same thing we do every year.
I guess
we cry for 48 hours and then life goes on and we have summer.
We'll just cross that bridge when we get to it. How about that? Jill says ABT, baby. Anybody but Toronto. Let's go.
Oh, come on.
I like that. Murray's watching us live on LinkedIn right now. What's up, Murray? He says 1972 Toyota Corolla. He bought that thing for $600 in 1979, complete with Fred Flintstone brakes. Says the floorboards were completely rusted out. Murray says I was an audiophile. Yeah, you and Johnny both. He says I was an audiophile and a biker. So that's where the serious money went. The Corolla was just needed to get around in Alberta winters. Alberta winters with rusted out floorboards. Sounds like a nightmare, but Murray looks like a tough guy. I think he could handle it. Congratulations there. Man, did we ever have, and I shared some video with you. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you probably saw it on my stories yesterday, but just an absolutely absolutely wonderful day at the Ranch Golf and Country Club. I went out there on a bit of a scouting mission. I wanted to check out, look, this is my buddy Hobie, if you're watching us on YouTube or on LinkedIn, maybe on Facebook
get this,
or X.
did he? He didn't get this. Oh,
So,
okay.
do you know what that was for, though? You know what that was for? That was for 79.
Oh, was it?
And he missed the putt on 18. Yeah, I felt bad for him, but he played a great round. He also had I did the slow-mo, his tee shot on 10. Did you see that one? Look at this. This is so annoying. Guys that have golf swings that are this pure drives me crazy. I can't stand it, but look at that. Just poetry in motion down the pipe. I don't know what he hits. He hits 300 plus most times, but just had an amazing day, and the course is looking fantastic out there. I'll let people know, and the ranch has just done such a beautiful job. The fairways are in mid-season condition. The greens were fast yesterday. Man, oh man, I was 2 and 3 putting absolutely everything. But the course is in beautiful condition. Went out there. So we are 2 weeks today, John. 2 weeks today. The Real Talk Golf Classic goes out at the ranch, but just a fantastic time. And look at that. We've got our Real Talk advertising out on the carts, on the GPS screens. Isn't that cool with the QR code? Real Talk.
Yeah, we're showing it right now.
What do you think? Real Talk, no gimmies.
I like it.
So if you're out at the ranch, you make sure you keep an eye out for that. And, I was chatting with Murray McCourt, the GM out there, just about how excited we are to get out there. And he was talking to us about, the early season success that they've seen. I think in part because they've had like a good balance of rain and obviously they irrigate as well. So the course looks great. But then, it's just also sort of, I think, a course that's a lot of fun to play. It's a bit of a party course, not in a bad way, but just in a way that you can blow off a little steam. It's not one of these stuffy courses, right?
Yeah.
There was a tournament going on. I won't say which one. It doesn't matter which one, but I kind of felt for the people there. They just didn't look like they were having as much fun as people are going to be having on the 19th of June at the Real Talk Golf Classic. It's a little bit of a different vibe at our golf tournament.
It was a Wednesday before an Oilers game, so I'm guessing it wasn't that busy.
No, it was actually packed.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Well, I think everyone was like us. You were trying to fit in a quick 18 before puck drop and just make it like an all-time day. What a life, right? So golf courses, or rather golf tournaments, they sell out at 144 golfers, and that's a lot. That's a lot of golfers to have out there. You don't want it to play too slowly. But we had we're waitlisted deep now on our tournament, and so we've actually we've widened the field, so we're going to have 152 golfers out there. That's the maximum allowable, which is great, but all in support of the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship. And I just wanted to remind everybody about this. I mean, we have a lot of fun. We like talking about partying. We like blowing off steam. Johnny's going to be DJing out there. We're going to be handing out, per usual, the cigars on our Real Talk hole. That's the 4th hole, etc.
There's no Oilers game.
There's no Oilers game. We know that for a fact. If we are lucky enough for this thing to go to Game 7, dude, it is the day before Game 7.
My buddy LZ just texted me as we're talking. He's like, Oilers in 4. Like, he's like thinking there's a sweep. But, oh, man, it would be great to wrap it up before the golf tournament and then just party hard.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, it'd be great to celebrate.
So, Jasper Town Councilor Wendy Hall is in our chat right now. What's up, Counselor? She says, I'm so excited to golf at the ranch in 2 weeks. She's going to be out there at the tournament. And she says, and yeah, you guys are right. There is Oilers love everywhere in Jasper. But let me just make sure that I get this on the record and put this on all of your radar. We do all of this in support of the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship, established to honor and cherish the memory of our dear friend Julie Rohr. If you go to RyanJespersen.com and you click on Connect, you'll find the scholarship link there. This is a scholarship that provides financial support for post-secondary students anywhere in Canada that have experienced the tragedy of losing a parent to cancer. And while you will check it out, you see RyanJespersen.com/scholarship is where you can find it and download the application. We're accepting applications all the way through until August 1st. If this is reaching you and this describes your circumstance, or if you know a post-secondary student that has lost a parent to cancer, please tell them about the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship. We'll accept applications all the way through until the 1st of August. We'll make the announcement on the scholarship recipient at the end of August to make sure that that individual knows that they've got that financial support in place for the school year. And I will say that while the website technically says, and it's accurate, that when the scholarship was established, it says that the scholarship provides a one-time contribution of $5,000 to a post-secondary student in Canada. And by the way, we don't send that check to the registrar of the university. We send it as an e-transfer to the recipient to be used as they need it to be used. If somebody needs to pay off some debt, if one of the students needs to buy a car with rusted oak floorboards like our buddy on LinkedIn. You decide. The recipient knows best how they can use those funds, and so we transfer those funds to use at your discretion how they need to be used. But thank you to the amazing support of Real Talkers that have joined us at these golf tournaments and that have helped us raise a bunch of money, plus others like sculptor Slavocek put together an incredible fundraiser, raised about $30,000 for the scholarship himself. Others of you have made it part of your philanthropic efforts, and you can donate to the Real Talk Julie Rohr Scholarship directly through the Edmonton Community Foundation. That's who manages the money, by the way. It's not me and Johnny. But we've built up enough of a kitty, we've built up enough of a nest egg that we've actually awarded multiple scholarships for 2 of the last 3 years, and we've been able to sustain that support. So each of the students, while the website says it's a one-time contribution of $5,000, we're really proud of the fact that this year we're supporting 5 post-secondary students with those $5,000 gifts.
That's amazing.
And, well, what's amazing is the Real Talkers that are allowing us to make this possible. The recipients, by the way, are chosen by our Real Talk editorial board. You hear them named in our credits at the end of every episode. It's not something that Johnny and I decide on. It goes to them. They review them. They decide on the recipients. But it's wonderful because we've been able now to say to these students, you can count on that $5,000 for 4 years in a row with proof of enrollment, right? So you prove. They send us proof of enrollment. They send it to our team every August or September, and then they'll receive that supporting in funds. And so, we just want to be able. We know that post-secondary schooling is very expensive, and we know that $5,000 doesn't cover all of your costs. But we just hope that that's something that can take some of the pressure off for students, like we said, that have lost a parent.
Yeah.
Some of them have lost 2 parents in one particularly heartbreaking case, and we just want to make sure that we can continue to sustain that. Our golf classic is a huge part of that, so we're really excited. Presented by National Bank Financial, by the way. We're really grateful for all the support.
Yeah.
I know our friends at Kubi Energy. I was talking to them. They're our cart partners, so they sponsor the carts for the whole tournament, and they're super excited. They got their team chomping at the bit, ready to go too.
Yeah. I know it's one of your favorite days, and it's no surprise. It's everyone knows I'm not a big golfer, but my favorite part of the entire Real Talk Golf Classic is at the end when we all sit down for dinner.
Yeah.
We do a little auction, and then if they're available, one of the scholarship or a few of the scholarship people come out. That is my favorite moment because they're so grateful. They're so intelligent. They're so caring. And the entire crowd as well just gets behind them. Everyone who attends gets a little teared up. It's my favorite moment of the whole thing. And the best part is you standing back there with your eyes kind of glazed over, being like, because that's what it's about. It's a big day of having fun. And,
Not glazed over from drinking. Just
No. I was just going to say, it is a day where we celebrate because it's always like playoff time. And we're having a few drinks. We're having a great day. But the important thing is what we're trying to accomplish here. And when that sinks in after all the fun is over at the dinner, that's really the best part of the whole day.
For sure. Tobias wishing everybody well that's going to be at the tournament. Appreciate that, buddy. Jill just says it's wonderful. Love that the money is given directly to the recipients. There are so many ways that students need help other than paying for tuition. Jill, you are 100% correct. I was just think there's a million different scenarios, right? But somebody needs food security, somebody hasn't had proper nutrition, or somebody just finds themselves in debt, or you got to pay for your books, or maybe you need to go buy a nice outfit for a job interview as you're graduating, whatever. They know more than we do about how they need to, of course, how they need to expend those funds. Vamp says you can also be a hero by considering buying a student their lunch. I love that. Or consider handing them a 20 or a 50 or 100 as a micro scholarship. Says broke students don't study well. That is beautifully and wonderfully said. Hey, let's put a couple of things on Real Talkers' radar, including Edmonton Opera right now. I just want to make sure. So this actually kicks off today. This is a huge deal. And not just for opera fans, because what they're doing this time around is a little bit different. This is a really innovative collaboration. The Edmonton Opera partnering with the Citadel Theater, strengthening the city's arts scene. Building on Das Rheingold, the next installment of the Ring Cycle brings a bold new vision of Die Walküre to life in an intimate, adaptive production directed for a smaller space. Presented at the McLab Theater in collaboration with the Citadel. This innovative retelling invites the audience closer than ever to drama, power, and to the emotional depth of Wagner's iconic work. This is a new arrangement by Jonathan Dove. It modernizes Wagner's work, and it's an intimate setting, as mentioned. I mean, the Jubilee Auditorium is wonderful, of course, but the McLab Theater puts you right there basically feet away from these incredible performers. It runs June 5th. That's today, the day we're talking to you. June 5th, the 7th, the 9th, the 10th, the 12th, and the 13th. So you've still got time to get tickets. It will sell out, however, and this will appeal to both Wagner enthusiasts and to new opera fans. So it's a great way to maybe expose somebody who's open to the idea of broadening their exposure to the arts, but maybe they've felt a little intimidated by this. This is a unique blend of tradition, modern storytelling, and this is a transformative moment for the Edmonton Opera for sure. This is a must-see, my friends. Take it from us. You can get your tickets today at edmontonopera.com. We spend a lot of time as well celebrating our partnership with our friends at Park Power. They are powering our Real Talk live chat, the best damn chat of any Canadian talk show. And we say that loud and proud. Park Power is your friendly local utilities provider with the lowest rates in the province on electricity, natural gas, and internet. Take a minute today. You could save yourself literally hundreds of dollars, literally. Or if you look at it over the course of a year or 2 years or 5 years, we're talking thousands of dollars in savings. If you go to parkpower.ca/realtalk, you can learn more about the partnership. But you can also check out some exclusive promo codes. These are for Real Talkers. We're getting this information because you're hearing about it or seeing it on Real Talk. If you sign up for electricity only using the promo code RealTalk50, boom, $50 off your first bill. If you're bundling services, electricity, natural gas, and internet, the promo code RealTalk, $50 off the first bill for every service you choose, up to $150 in savings. And that's just your first bill. Never mind the fact they got the lowest rates in the province. Again, that's parkpower.ca/realtalk. California Closets of Canada, the best in the business when it comes to custom closets and storage solutions for your entire home. Make the most of your space with custom organizational systems from California Closets. Nobody does installations in the primary bedroom better. Hey, how about that new dream walk-in closet you always wanted? Maybe it's an entertainment center. Maybe it's a home office. Could double as a spare bedroom with one of those Murphy beds on the wall. California Closets can work with any space. They can work with any budget, and every installation manufactured in Alberta and guaranteed for life. You can learn more and request your free consultation with their incredible team of designers today at californiaclosets.ca. And we're putting out a call to those job seekers that are looking for something new, an exciting opportunity, a future-facing career path. Well, you'll find it with Kuby Renewable Energy. Online at kuby.ca. That's kuby.ca. Check out Solar by Kuby and then the careers link, and you can check out up to the minute the job openings that they're featuring in Alberta and British Columbia. Shape the future of energy with Solar by Kuby. They've got a job available in Edmonton right now for a solar PV expert. They're hiring those of you with tickets, a journey person in Lethbridge, a remote opportunity in beautiful Kelowna, BC for a direct solar sales expert. Down in Calgary, they could use an electrical engineer. That sounds like a great opportunity. Again, that's kuby.ca. Check out the solar link and then click on careers. Kuby Energy, proud presenting sponsor of Positive Reflections. First episode of every week here on Real Talk. And of course, we appreciate their cart sponsorship at the Real Talk Golf Classic. All right, we're about 15 minutes away from a conversation with Alberta's Education Minister, Demetrios Nicolaides. We're going to ask him, of course, about this survey, this online survey. You can check it out. I'll show my screen right now, and we'll link to it in the show notes if you want to participate. It's at your.alberta.ca. You can just Google Alberta Government Library Survey, and it'll come up. Government of Alberta wants to hear from Albertans about age-appropriate materials in school libraries. They say to bring more transparency, more oversight to the selection and management of school library materials, including those with sexually explicit content. Alberta's government considering new standards that would establish consistent requirements for school boards in selecting material for their school library collections. And you have to imagine that a lot of folks are participating in this. As they say, it's the same with feedback to talk shows. If you're pissed off or if you're unhappy, you're much more likely to participate than if you're thrilled with what you hear, right? It's like most people who leaves restaurant reviews, the odd person that had a good experience at the restaurant is going to go help out the restaurant and leave a positive review, but it's typically the people whose food was cold or they saw a cockroach or whatever the case may be. I hope you're not seeing cockroaches where you're eating dinner, but you take my point, right? So I have to imagine the people that are most motivated to participate in this survey are the people that would like to see change. And by change, I mean that they would like to see some of these books, the books that they deem to be offensive or inappropriate or at least age inappropriate, removed from the schools, right? So we get into this in a recent episode of the show. We talked to Laura Winton from the Library Association of Alberta. Jim Turk joined us as well. Jim from Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly Ryerson, the Center for Free Expression. Why don't we load up that short? This is basically, obviously it was a longer conversation. I thought it was a great episode if you want to check it out. That was on the 3rd of June. But here's what they had to say. Pardon me, there's at least one somewhat shocking word that's going to be used here. That's the whole point. These are the words in the books. But here's a boiled down highlight version of how that conversation went.
If the Edmonton Public Library removed every book that somebody in Edmonton felt was inappropriate in the library, they'd have almost nothing left in their collection.
Your mom is so religious, it makes everyone in town sick, and your brother, your little brother with his messy hair and stupid voice must be... I get hesitant to say it because we don't really say that word anymore and we know that it's hurtful. How is it justifiable in a book in a library?
Just because it makes us uncomfortable to hear that doesn't mean that we don't live in a world where that word is thrown around, where people don't experience hearing that word and the hurt that comes with it. Having books on our shelves that let kids explore and think about that show empathetic portraits of what it's like to live through that kind of abuse and bullying, that's important.
It won the award for the best comic novel of the past decade. So we're not talking about some piece of garbage. Who decides what books should be in libraries? With regard to school libraries, my view is those difficult decisions should be made by educators, not by politicians.
So there you go. That's Laura Winton and Jim Turk on our June 3rd episode. It prompted an email from Johnny, not this Johnny, different Johnny, to talk at RyanJespersen.com. He submitted it for the flamethrower, and John, you know, sometimes when we get to the flamethrower, we get these like big long essays from people, and we got to hack and slash and cut them down because we have 5 minutes to read hopefully 5 or 10 different takes. This one, Real Talker Jonny wanted it read during the flamethrower. I think it's better read now because it's a little bit longer, and I appreciate the points that he makes. It says, your take on the content in school libraries fell far short of the journalistic standards that I've come to expect of you. It says the concerns raised by parents about sexually explicit materials in schools were portrayed as simplistic, religiously motivated, or rooted in bigotry. The framing was not just dismissive, but in some cases it was outright fallacious and misleading. He says, I'd like to offer some sadly missing counterpoints here. I mean, keep in mind, we got the minister coming on. Real Talk, if you know, and if you're familiar with Real Talk, many times we'll have conversations over the period of days or weeks or months or even years, depending on what it is, right? We didn't cover all of coal mining in the Eastern Slopes in one episode. We didn't cover, parental notification of pronoun changes in just one episode. We haven't covered almost barely anything in just one episode, but I'll take Johnny's point. We invite this feedback and we want this feedback. He says, number one, parents don't have rights, they have responsibilities. This was a comment made by Jim Turk in the episode. He says, I do agree. And one of those responsibilities is to determine what content is age appropriate for their children. And raising questions around this is not queer phobic, but it's a necessary part of parenting. Says the conversation, number two, quickly framed criticism as an attack on queer content. He says that's a serious accusation, one that demands evidence. If explicit heterosexual content of equal graphical intensity is not removed, that would be evidence of bias. But if the same standards apply across the board, that should be acknowledged as well. He says you hand wave away the concerns by pointing out that kids can access worse content online. He says if ease of access everywhere is the standard, what content, if any, would be considered inappropriate for school libraries? Like, what's the principle at play here? He says, for example, if no pornography is the line, then we need to define it. I talked about this yesterday. He says some content in question, depictions of oral sex or sexual assault involving minors, could reasonably be considered obscene under legal standards. He says, here's a thought experiment. If you or I handed these materials to kids outside a playground, what do you think would happen? I mean, I just want to read this and then I'll respond to it. He says, number 4, you call this censorship? He says the content would remain accessible outside of schools. The question is not whether we ban it from society, but whether it belongs in K-9 schools. Most people agree on some level of restrictions on school library content. Does that constitute censorship or discretion? He says, number 5, don't confuse distractions with parallel concerns, right? Sidebar, a lot of people have been saying this is a distraction from a million other things. I see Jillian, junior high school teacher in our chat right now, says she just voted to strike. She says, yeah, I just voted to strike. She says, I'm done. She says, we need EAs, not book bans. People are suggesting that this is a distraction away from a million different things, including maybe an RCMP investigation into the AHS procurement, the alleged scandal there. Whatever the case may be, Johnny says, don't confuse it. Don't confuse distractions with parallel concerns. More than one thing can be true at once. You can demand both better funding for schools and age-appropriate content in schools. Johnny says, despite the long interview, your guests offered no explanation of the standards by which these materials are reviewed. I disagree. Laura did in fulsome fashion. He says, what developmental or psychological research informs these decisions? It was the passage, by the way, where they're talking about the coming of age. And she talks about the role that librarians would play in overseeing and interacting with students as they're accessing these materials. Johnny says institutions only work when they are transparent in their process. And currently, trust in institutions is too fragile to rely purely on arguments from authority. And he says, number 7, and finally, you yourself, Ryan, acknowledged that sexual content is everywhere in today's culture. Isn't that more reason to preserve spaces like schools where children can focus on growth, not premature exposure? He says the segment was not balanced journalism, but a one-sided commentary. I mean, it's a talk show. He says you introduced the discussion as a dialogue, but you made no effort to steel-man the other side. Rather, you straw-manned your opponents as ignorant hillbillies, homophobes, and religious zealots you did not seek to understand. He says, I don't know if you're consciously avoiding the other side or if your echo chamber makes the contrast harder to see. But either way, the episode did not meet the standard that you've set in the past. Johnny says, if your show intends to represent a specific ideological view, be transparent about that. Otherwise, make a greater effort to understand and represent those who see things differently. I mean, Johnny didn't know we have the education minister on today when he was writing this, I'm sure, but that's fine. He says, I'm still rooting for you. This is the part I appreciate. Well, I appreciate all of it, but he says, I'm still rooting for you. He says, I believe independent journalism is indispensable, and it's precisely because I respect your work that I write so passionately. He says, I'll close with a quote that you likely know well from John Stuart Mill, quote, he who knows only his own side of the case knows little of that. He must be able to hear opposing opinions from persons who actually believe them, who defend them in earnest, and who do their very utmost for them. That from Real Talker Johnny. That's a great email.
Good
regardless
email.
of how you feel about it, to talk@ryanjespersen.com. I really appreciate that.
From one Johnny to another,
Yeah.
even though I don't agree with all of it. Very well written.
It's okay, right?
I think one of the things you brought up that is important, though, is that most of the things we were reading, they're LGBTQ themed, right? Like, how many sexual books did you read growing up in high school, Ryan? Catcher in the Rye is pretty sexual, prostitution, drinking, all that stuff. Kill a Mockingbird's about rape, of mice and men. There's prostitution and stuff in there. So, as long as it's hetero-themed, it seems to be okay. These books have been in curriculum, not just in a library, Ryan, right? So I think that has to be noted. But it was a very well-written email. Oh, our guest is here. I'll let you speak for a minute.
Chelsea the Ginge says, I think that the issue that some folks have is that there's more seemingly being done on the relatively small issue and not enough on the big issues like classroom sizes. That's another thing. Let me just make a note here on my file. Classroom size. That's another thing that we'll ask the education minister about, Demetrios Nicolaides. We appreciate him making himself available, obviously. Gizmo says, heaven forbid children be educated or be able to understand when somebody touches them in a bad place, right? Others say, Nicole, can we have, please, a conversation about students receiving the lowest amount of funding per capita out of all of the provinces? Can we talk about the wait lists for FSCD? Any thoughts on the looming teacher strike? People have, once you start talking about healthcare and education, people get fired up in understandable ways like no other file. Although maybe with the exception of some environmental liabilities, right? I would say, like, we briefly touched on the coal mining story. That pissed people off big time, pisses people off big time. Number one, I think because of how we see our mountains and not technically mountain parks, but how we see the value of those eastern slopes. Second, the watersheds. Third, I think the fact that there's really not a lot of benefit for Albertans in this, for everyday Albertans. I think a lot of people just see it as a rich Australian mining company coming in and pilfering and harvesting our resources for their own benefit and not for the benefit of Albertans. So maybe that's an example. Environmentally, for sure. Oil spills piss people off. Of course, that's a big deal. But when you start talking about healthcare and education, it's no surprise. And when I say that we see a lot of feedback, and I'm talking about, I want to shout out to our TikTok followers, to our followers on Instagram, to those of you that leave comments on our YouTube episodes. There's hundreds and thousands of comments every single week that we're receiving, and impassioned ones. Like that email that I just read from Johnny. That's a guy who took the time, based on something that he feels strongly about, to articulate his concerns and to make a counter argument. This is why I profess my love to this audience every single day, because of the conversations that we have and because of the passion that drives those conversations. It's because it's real talk about stuff that really matters. And we'll pick that up with Alberta's Minister of Education in just a minute, the Honorable Demetrios Nicolaides. That's coming up in just a quick second. First, talking about the kids, we've been letting you know all year how proud we are to be partnering with the team at UCAN Youth Services to really amplify the work that they're doing. This is life-changing, transformative work, a nonprofit charitable organization that's helping young people out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence. A big part of that is their relentless outreach programs. These are the kids 12 to 17 that are basically, they're in trouble with the law, on a regular, ongoing basis. But you know who's not writing them off? The team at UCAN is not writing them off. They're doing everything they can to get those kids into healthy peer groups, healthy living situations, stable housing, food security, and of course, back into school if there's a fit there. But there's also the Verto and Road to Work programs. These are for young adults 18 to 24, collaborations with companies, in particular the Road to Work program, companies in the construction, road building, and traffic safety industries. These are awesome paid program opportunities. Successful candidates graduate earning $15 an hour, and then they go from there. But they've got the tools that they need to enter the construction, road building, and traffic safety industries. It starts with learning how to run saws and drills and basic stuff, safety training, all the way up to the point where these young adults can walk onto a job site with the confidence that they can make an immediate contribution. If you happen to be hiring for a company that works in the construction or road building industry, and you could see a partnership here to be picking up basically and welcoming, onboarding skilled entry-level labor, I encourage you to reach out to UCAN today at ucan.ca. Our friends at North Road Investment Council, a steady hand and a studied voice to guide you through wealth and investing. If you're sitting, quite frankly, up at night, or if you're making your way through the day and all you can think about is your family's portfolio, whether or not you actually have enough to retire if you're fooling yourself, how do you make sure you don't run out of money if you live into your 90s, or how do you protect your savings from inflation or maybe a market crash? If these questions are keeping you up at night, or if you don't even know which questions to ask, it's time to talk to the team at North Road Investment Council. They're certified financial planners and financial analysts, chartered analysts, can answer your biggest retirement and financial planning questions. They're independent fiduciaries, and you're going to pay them a per-hour fee. They're not collecting commissions paid by selling you investment products, so there's no pressure, there's no fluff. It is clear advice and strategies that make sense. You can connect with Marshall and Carrie and their team today. That's North Road Investment Council on their website, northroadic.com. And speaking of the business of business, we've been celebrating the work that our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce have been doing through this playoff run, advocating for businesses, of course, and that includes a playoff-ready business toolkit. Check this out on their Instagram. Give them a follow at Edmonton Chamber. They've got these new Oilers playoff business toolkits, promo ideas, printable signs, social media templates, loyalty strategies, and member-exclusive swag offers. It's such a cool opportunity. You can check out more and learn more about the benefits of membership by visiting edmontonchamber.com/go Oilers go. Alberta's Education Minister Demetrios Nicolaides making time for us this morning, which we appreciate. This as the government has opened up an online survey. They want to hear from Albertans about what they're describing as age-appropriate materials in school libraries. They say it'll bring more transparency and oversight to the selection and management of school library materials. As we welcome the Honourable Minister Demetrios Nicolaides. Thanks for making time for us. Good morning to you.
Of course. Yeah, my pleasure. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, of course. How did this all come about? There's some parental rights groups that have been celebrating the fact that they've seen progress by lobbying the Ministry of Education. But what happens behind the scenes for something like this to actually roll out to the public?
Yeah, well, we have been getting some concern over a significant time period about the potential existence of some inappropriate material. But of course, I think a lot of that has just been anecdotal. We were then provided with some more information about actual details of material and books that were available in specific schools. And so we took some time to see if that was indeed the case. And we took a look through some of the catalogs of some of our school divisions to see if some of these books were indeed available. We found that that was indeed the case, and recognized afterwards that we may need to take some additional steps to make sure that we have provincial-wide standards when it comes to selection of library materials, because right now we don't. The government of Alberta provides voluntary guidelines and suggestions for our school boards to follow, and our school boards then have a variety of different approaches and a variety of different standards when it comes to the selection of library material. And so we began to have a conversation as to whether some new standards would need to be in place. And of course, before we make any kind of final decision, we want to hear a little bit more from Albertans, school boards, library associations, and other interested groups about what those standards should look like, because I think it's important that we have a degree of consistency across the province.
So critics of this move have sort of described, I mean, in a number of different ways, an attack on intellectual freedom. Some are calling it government overreach. Did you or did your ministry, did this government make an effort to reach out to school boards or in some cases individual schools where potential problems were proving to arise? What happened before taking it to this stage of public consultation and the government essentially taking it over?
Yeah, so what we did is we did a little bit more research and investigation on our end to see, what are the standards that are currently in place? What degree of oversight does the government have? What kind of legislative and policy authority do we have? Recognizing that we do already have standards. I take your point, and some critics perhaps suggesting that this is an attempt to try and limit some kind of content that's available, but all of our school boards already have standards. So this isn't really anything new. It's common practice for all of our school boards to have guidelines, policies, and standards in place about how they govern their school libraries and what kind of materials permissible and not. What we're simply saying is that we believe that there needs to be provincial-wide standards that make sure that we have a degree of consistency. In terms of talking with school boards, we have had some conversations with them. We didn't have an opportunity to talk with them too in depth before we made the announcement. However, I'm not a fan of any of my ministry partners being notified about government initiatives or changes in the media. And so we did notify them ahead of time. I personally sat down with some of our major advocacy and umbrella organizations to let them know what we would be doing and when we would be doing it, recognizing that we're not making any decisions at this point. We're just inviting folks to provide us with some more perspective.
When you're talking about provincial standards, can you clarify what criteria is being used to deem a book controversial or even subject to removal from school libraries?
Well, that's exactly the question that we want to answer. That's exactly the question that we want to hear more from our school boards, library associations, and most importantly, parents as well, to give us some parameters. Now, of course, I don't think we can have any kind of standards that simply say that something is offensive, because that's all in the eye of the beholder. So I think that any kind of standards will need to be very narrow and very black and white. For example, I don't think it should be very problematic or controversial at all to say material that has graphic depictions of sexual activity, It's probably not something that we need in our school libraries. And again, I think that those are standards that many of our school libraries already have and already enforce, but we are seeing potentially some gaps. But I'm hoping that we see, again, very limited, very narrow policy. I'm not a fan of a government overstepping and overreaching in any way. And so I think we just need to have some very narrow definitions and some very narrow standards.
Minister, we got an email from a guy by the name of Dave who writes in. He says, I want to put a name, says Dave, to what the government is doing here with school libraries. He says it's a power grab. He says it's been well explained that there were already mechanisms in place at the local level for parents and community members to be heard. This is yet another attempt to override local civic engagement and impose party politics on communities. They're not currently poisoned. He says this doesn't sound very small government to me. What would you say to Dave?
I'm not sure how this is a matter of party politics at all. The provincial government, of course, it's our responsibility and my responsibility as minister to make sure that we fully define the policies, standards, and expected outcomes of our education system. So that's what we're doing. We already have voluntary guidelines, as I mentioned. It seems as though in some areas we may need to make some of those voluntary practices a little bit more formal. But again, we're not telling our school boards or school libraries that individual titles are not permitted. We're not banning books, as I've heard some of the criticism is. The Ministry of Education and the minister doesn't even have the authority to do that. So I'm not sure how that would be done.
Are you expecting legal challenges, Minister?
I'm not. I haven't heard of any concern from any groups that would be seeking any kind of legal challenge. But if any Albertan or group wants to pursue that, that's their right. It is important whenever we're making decisions that we do so within the context of the power and authority that's contained within legislation. So we have the authority to develop standards for the provision of education. And so we'll be taking steps in that regard.
We talk. Will you be? I'm curious to know what the consultation process will look like with the professionals in the space, right? With like librarians and educators, curriculum experts, and the like. We talked to Laura Winton on the 3rd of June from the Library Association of Alberta. She's the president there. Actually, just till the end of this week. But she mentioned to us that the Library Association of Alberta had reached out to your ministry and had not heard back. They're very eager to meet with you. Will you meet with them?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I did see their letter, and I asked my team to find a time for us to connect. Yeah, very happy to meet with them and hear their perspective. I'm happy to meet with a range of different Albertans to get perspective. And again, I don't think that this is something that needs to be really controversial and really problematic. My main concern here is just to make sure that any kind of graphic depictions of sexual activity is age appropriate and not available to elementary age students. I think we can all agree that that's probably a bridge too far. I know in some of your previous episodes, some of your previous guests agreed with some of those parameters that, well, maybe for K-9 students, this may be a little inappropriate or maybe a little bit over the line. So I think we're all kind of saying the same thing here.
And I can't imagine anybody disagreeing with the premise that graphic sexual content should be, available at an age appropriate level. And I don't think anybody would disagree with that. But I do think that, number one, it's worth clarifying, and I'm sure you would agree that in K-9, K is very different than 9, right? I mean, a 6-year-old and a 14-year-old are very different stages of their development. They're very different stages of their awareness of the world around them, the information they need to be aware of, their awareness of their own bodies, that sort of a thing. I don't necessarily have a very strong position on this. I don't know that I have a dog in this fight, except for the fact that I'm a proud Albertan and a parent. So for that reason, of course, I want my kids to be well equipped to understand the world around them. I want to keep my kids safe, but that applies, or that's relevant on a number of different fronts. I think you and I would both agree as well. And I think that some people, they would point out that given the diversity of Alberta's population, we want to ensure that in Alberta and across Canada, that the range of perspectives and experiences that's represented in school libraries is maintained. How do you ensure that that happens in the context of what we're seeing here with this pressure from these special interest groups?
Well, I think the way that we do that is very simple. We don't look at any kind of guidelines, and I have no intention of looking at any kind of guidelines that deal with any kind of topic or subject. You're absolutely right, and I agree. I think we have to make sure that we have a diversity of topics and subjects available in our school libraries. Nobody's arguing with that. My main question, though, is that material and subject being presented in an age-appropriate way. And so, as I mentioned, I have no intention and will not develop any kind of standards that broach or talk about particular subjects or topics of discussion that are appropriate or inappropriate. What we're, again, most concerned about is that being communicated and presented to students and kids in an age-appropriate way.
We've got a ton of teachers, that members of this listening audience, and we've been getting a lot of emails, some of them anonymously. I think many of them are bracing for a strike. I would imagine that you and your obviously colleagues in government and in the ministry are probably bracing for the same as well. The recurring theme in this feedback is around funding. And they're saying one of the things that they're very much lamenting in the context of this library book conversation is that a lot of the schools don't have enough librarians or don't have librarians anymore at all. Some of them have written in talking to us about choices that they've had to make, the schools have had to make between having an EA, an educational assistant versus a librarian, that sort of a thing. Classroom sizes are obviously a huge concern as well. How are you planning to address the reported issues around that? Low wages, staffing shortages, among educational support workers that quite likely could lead to a strike position?
Well, I hope we don't get there. I'm very eager to hear from the from the Alberta Teachers Association about what more that we can do. We had landed on a mutually agreeable spot. Of course, we had negotiations and conversations. Ultimately, the mediator developed and produced a report of their recommendation as to what was necessary for us to reach a deal. We accepted that. The Alberta Teachers Association accepted that. We both believed that it was a fair and balanced position. They took that subsequently to their members, and their members had some differences of opinion. So happy to hear about what more, if there's any particular areas where we need to do a little bit more. Very happy to hear about that. We have been hearing, of course, indeed, concerns about growing complexity in classroom, growing class sizes just generally, as we're seeing a significant amount of more people move to Alberta. It's part of the reason why in budget 25, we made some changes to the way we fund our school divisions. We provided an injection of $1.1 billion in new funding over the next 3 years, increased funding for classroom complexity, increased funding for refugee students, and a range of different areas to try and contend with many of the challenges our education system is facing currently. So we are listening, and most importantly, we're taking action. If there's other areas where we need to do a little bit more, I'm happy to undertake that.
And I mean, we'll point out that Alberta is spending for Alberta a record amount, 2025-26 budget. Just for the benefit of the listening audience, Alberta will spend a record $9.88 billion on education. That's an increase of about $426 million. But still, the Alberta Teachers Association, as you well know, has indicated that an additional $1.5 billion is needed to meet that national per student funding average. This is something that I think a lot of people, myself included, can't really wrap our minds around. And I'm not saying that a prosperous province or a province with a healthy economy like Alberta, for the most part, should spend for the sake of spending. But I do think reputationally, if nothing else, it is tough to wrap your mind around the fact that Alberta does spend the least per student of any province or territory in Canada. What's the rationale behind that? Can you help us understand that?
Yeah, sure. And I think it's important, as you mentioned, to look at our reputation internationally and our standards and our scores. We do exceptionally well. And the latest PISA result rankings show we're number one in Canada in many subjects, and tied for second place in many others, and contend with many of the top jurisdictions internationally, like places like Hong Kong and Singapore in math and in other areas. So we do very well. And of course, that's all attributed to the amazing work of our professionals, our teachers, our educational assistants, and others. So our results, our reputation is incredible. In fact, I've hosted 2 delegations from Germany over the past 2 years who have come to learn about our success. Germany experienced what they've called PISA shock when their system reportedly did incredibly terrible on PISA international result rankings. And so they went to the top of the list and said, okay, well, let's go learn from some of the best. And of course, Alberta's at the top of that list in many respects. And so they've come to Alberta twice. And we reciprocated with a visit as well for them to understand. Now, in terms of the funding per student, I know some of the numbers that are being offered, show or suggest that we're the lowest in Canada. I should note that a lot of that data is several years old, does not include funding from budget 23, 24, and 25, where significant investments into education have been made. And indeed, there's other analysis that shows that we're not last, as has been suggested. Of course, it's all how you slice the data. But if you look at, there was, I think, a report done by the CBC that tried to look at some of this information objectively. And they said, if you look at it really objectively, we're not the last in Canada at all.
Can you give us a sense, like, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of the funding allocations in achieving your desired outcomes? Like, how does that evaluation actually play out in ways that the average Albertan would understand?
Yeah, we have key benchmarks that are in our annual plan and annual report that we monitor. Of course, graduation rate, dropout rate, and of course, PAT results, scores. Those are the different variables that we look at in determining, the overall kind of success of our education system. And we're trying to move that forward. One of the things that we've recently announced is some additional screening when it comes to literacy and numeracy for kindergarten to grade 3 students. These screening mechanisms have been developed right here in Alberta by academics at the University of Alberta and with other international counterparts. And they can demonstrate with 95% success whether an individual will have challenges in reading, writing, and math in the future. And so we're rolling this out to all of our school divisions. In fact, many provinces are now trying to copy us, and we're leading the way in this early assessment. So success in those early assessments, success with some of our other rankings in terms of graduation rates, career opportunities, the percentage of students who are employed, PISA result rankings, all of these things are looked at objectively when we try to determine the overall health and success of our education system.
Minister, we've got obviously a very engaged audience right now. Heidi says, sorry, I know that it's going down. I know the funding is going down. Says the minister is being sneaky with his answer. Others are talking about they're seeing mice in their schools for the first time in 10 years. There's other folks that are leaving us comments. We just got an email to talk@ryanjespersen.com, an anonymous email by request that's talking about some of the disparity that this rural community is experiencing with their schools, generally speaking. And I'm not saying that the sky is falling, but there's a theme, a recurring theme that people are feeling like education is just not a top priority of this government, that education, quite frankly, is under attack, not just on the intellectual freedom or the inquisitive sort of a front, that curiosity that you hope to foster in young learners, but as well in the infrastructure. What do you say to Albertans that are passionately fired up about this? I'll ask you about this recall campaign that's targeting you in just a second, but what do you say to the people? I mean, I'm talking dozens and dozens and dozens of comments as you and I are speaking.
Yeah, and I would say that I would just point to many of the objective facts and information. In the fall, we announced an $8.6 billion initiative to build and modernize over 100 schools across the province. In Budget 25, we provided a roadmap for the investment of $1.1 billion of new funding to our education system in the same budget that we projected a $5.2 billion deficit. So I think that demonstrates very clearly how much of a priority our education system and the success of our education system is. We wouldn't be looking to make significant new investments, both on the capital and on the operating side, within the background of a $5.2 billion deficit, if we didn't strongly believe that additional investments were necessary, and if we didn't strongly believe in supporting our education system. So I would just point to what the government's doing as evidence of our desire to support our education system.
I want to be clear, and I'll let this audience know I have like 2 minutes left with you, so it feels like a quick interview, but PISA, this program for international student assessment, an educator in the chat right now says if Minister is so proud of these PISA results, you'd think he'd fight to maintain it, not actively work toward threatening it. Do you believe that could be threatened?
I'm not sure how we're actively working to threaten those results. I mean, I just mentioned a moment ago, $1.1 billion additional investment, new money coming into our education system. We're looking at updating and modernizing our curriculum, many of which is 20 years old. Our computer science curriculum is 20 years old. It needs to be updated. We're looking at updating all of that. We're looking to create more opportunities for students to gain hands-on learning experience as well and find pathways to careers. So again, I'm not sure how making historic investments into our education system can be interpreted as actively dismantling it or attacking it. We want to see the success of our education system. It's the future of our province. It's the future of our kids. And it's definitely something that we want to support.
In closing, Minister, we're talking to Alberta Education Minister Demetrios Nicolaides, a Calgary group rallying at City Hall a short time ago, the Alberta Resistance Group, and they're hoping to recall 3 United Conservative Party MLAs to trigger an early provincial election. You're one of them that they're taking aim at, along with colleague Rajan Sani of note, another prominent UCP MLA and minister. How are you wrapping your mind around it? What's your message, not just your constituents, but to people that are fighting to have you recalled?
Sure. Well, I know the individual organizing the campaign, we don't see eye to eye on a number of different matters, have met a couple of times over the past couple of years and just have been at odds in terms of priorities and objectives. So I know the individual personally. I'm very confident, of course, in the support of my constituents and the success. We're just shy of 50% of voter support in the last election. I think it was like 49.7%. And so, very confident in the success that we've delivered for constituents, that I've been able to deliver and that our party delivers. And, of course, everyone has the democratic right to pursue recall. We firmly believe that. Of course, we're a government that put that into practice. And so if someone wants to pursue that, that's their prerogative, of course.
That's Minister of Education, Province of Alberta, Demetrios Nicolaides. Thanks for making time for us today. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Anytime. All the best.
Okay, perfect. All the best. Interesting dynamic, by the way, in that riding. That's Calgary-Bow, by the way. This is the home riding for the minister we were just speaking to. Johnny, you probably remember the name Drew Farrell. Drew was a long time, they used to call him alderman, but like a Calgary city councilor for like years and years and years. And she threw her hat into the ring for the NDP in the 2023 provincial election. Minister Nicolaides winning that by 385 votes. So relatively speaking, that was a really tight race in Calgary-Bow. Calgary Northwest, another tight one that this group, this Alberta Resistance Group is taking aim at. As mentioned, Rajan Sani won by 149 votes. Over the NDP candidate, that was Michael Lisboa-Smith. So those are two of the ones that they're taking aim at to trigger that recall. You always kind of wonder when you see election results like that, where an election is won. I mean, some federal ridings, you saw they were won by like 20 votes, 12 votes, like so tight. You just wonder, like, for the door knockers, for the campaign volunteers, for the people that were going around to think, could we have changed 12 or 20 or 150 minds over the course of an entire riding to swing that election result? That would have been pretty wild stuff. You can let us know what you think about this to talk@ryanjespersen.com. Justin says minister's good at towing the party line. Says anybody this is Justin's opinion. Anybody that survives as a minister under this premier has got to be good at kissing the ring. You could probably say that about any minister under any premier, but Justin will take your point. There was also a good comment here. I think that, this is a fair comment as well from Nicole, who just says if everything's going so great, then why are teachers getting ready to strike? I appreciate the optimism from the minister there. What else is he going to say? Of course, he's going to say that they're going to try to avoid a strike. Strikes are not good for anybody. They're obviously not great for the students. They're not great for the families. They're not great for the people that are on strike. They're not great for the administrators. It makes things awkward. Great insights, by the way. As I know I'm talking about this Dwayne Choman interview quite a bit on the 4th of June, our most recent episode. But Dwayne, a longtime labor negotiator, a labor lawyer, and his insights on the Canada Post strike, or the looming strike. He says technically they're kind of striking right now. Really interesting insights. But of course, the minister is going to say we're going to try to get this all figured out. I don't know what you're hearing. I'll recognize. I know you're not doing like school pickup a lot of days or anything like that.
No days.
Except for maybe when I ask you to go bail me out, swing by the
I'm
school.
like the old guy on the lawn because I have a school literally a half block from me. Like, keep it down in the morning and at night when I'm taking a nap and they're going home at like 4. No, I'm just kidding.
But I'll be honest. I don't endeavor to put our kids' teachers in tough spots, and I'm not asking them about strikes. I just don't think that's appropriate, and I don't think that's probably what they want to talk about to parents doing school pickup. But I will say the scuttlebutt among the parents is it feels like, and again, this is anecdotal, but it feels like parents are bracing for a strike, and I know that a lot of them are expecting.
Oh, really?
It. Yeah, I mean, I just think everybody's, and you think of for a lot of families, that's going to be obviously a very disruptive event, and at the end of the day, for the teachers, it's something that they're going to fight for because that's probably the best way to get the government's attention, and it's the best way to catch the public's attention and put this issue on the radar.
Parents for sure. I mean,
Right?
school is. I'm not equating the public education system to that, but it is a form of daycare. It is some place to put your kid during the day while you're at work, and that's. You can believe if teachers go on strike, that is going to be felt by parents.
Well, I don't know, and I think that there's a lot of families like the family unit where it could be like a single parent.
100%. I feel bad for them,
working,
right?
And these are, in a lot of cases. I talked to somebody yesterday. I appreciated his name was Aaron. He came up and was talking to me, and he was just talking about how life is been very difficult in his household. He just said trying to make ends meet. It was just a casual conversation. I appreciated his candidness, his candor. He goes, how are things going? We're just small talk conversation, get to know the guy a little bit. I go, how about you? How are you doing? He goes, man, just with the cost of living and everything else, he goes, it's just been a real grind. Mm-hmm. And I know that a lot of people, whether it's the gig economy or people are taking more hours at work or maybe, in a 2-parent household, maybe all of a sudden both parents are going out to work, somebody's picking up a part-time job, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you look at the disruptive element of this. Ben is wondering in our live chat, powered by Park Power, does anybody else think that Alberta is booming with population increase and that it's too much too soon? We've talked a lot about the Alberta is Calling campaign and how, in an ironic kind of a twist, it was too successful. And it wasn't just the campaign. I don't think it's just the campaign. I don't want to give that much credit to whatever creative agency came up with that. But I will say that job opportunities, relatively lower costs of housing. Yeah. I'm not saying that it's cheap to live in Calgary or Edmonton or anywhere else, but it's a lot cheaper than Toronto or Vancouver.
Sure.
There's a lot of factors at play why I think, people are moving to Alberta. I've been proud to host a number of events recently, and one of them was the State of Our City address put on by the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. 1,200 people in the room talking about this, and the perspective check when you note that just the Metro Edmonton region, okay? And I know that we have an audience that's obviously province-wide and beyond. Our audience actually, as a matter of fact, people are always interested to hear this. It's pretty much these days evenly split, Calgary and Edmonton, which is great.
It's split on everything, male, female.
100%. Yeah, it's actually it's been fascinating to see how that plays out. But to make my point, Metro Edmonton region, Johnny, every 2 years is adding a red deer. Population-wise, every 2 years. And you think of the schools, you think of the fire halls, you think of even just the increased number of toilets that are flushing and showers that are running in the morning and all of the extra sewer infrastructure and power and just everything. Hospitals, you go on and on and on, right? Fire halls, everything, right? It's a major, and yes, the tax base is growing, obviously, that's a big deal. When the minister comes on, the truth of the matter is record spending is happening in education. That's a fact. And he's saying, from his perspective, there's always many sides to the coin. There's many different perspectives in a conversation like this, but he's not wrong when he points out that 9.88, let's call it 9.9 billion, call it 10 billion if you want, that's a record expenditure in the province of Alberta on education. It is up almost $500 million, $426 million. But if you look at the growth in the schools, if you look at the population increase, if you look at some of these classrooms, every time that we've asked Real Talkers for anecdotally, for indicators on what their kids' classroom sizes are like, you get the odd one that's 24 or 26, 22. Great. You get some that are 40, 38. And you're trying to imagine teachers trying to keep up with that. I'll also note that some of you are definitely making a strong point in saying that, this funding increase is also going in record amounts to private and charter schools in more of fashion than Alberta has seen ever before. There is increased funding and supports under this government for private and charter schools. I've worn my heart on my sleeve and told you, my cards, my educational upbringing was kind of a little bit of everything. A little bit of private school, a little bit of public school, private university, public university. So I feel like I've seen it all. And I do support parents' choice and families' choice in education. But when it comes to the funding of it, and we've had many, many conversations on this, that's a contentious issue. Alberta funds private schools more and private school families or those that are, in many cases making the sacrifices to send their kids to private schools would say that Alberta is probably most fair in this regard. They get, these families get the most out of their tax dollars, the education, property taxes that they're paying. You get the most back toward your child's schooling than any other province in Canada. Others are saying that private schools should receive zero public funds. And if you want to send your kids to a private school, fill your boots. That's your right. You're more than welcome to do so. But $0 should be coming out of the public system at a time when the public system needs funding perhaps more desperately than ever before. You can let us know what you think on this, where you land on this, what you thought about the interview with the education minister by sending us an email to talk@ryanjespersen.com. I sure appreciate it, man. This live chat is humming right now. A lot of you pointing out that, you're saying you're spending a lot of time talking about the families and the kids. What about the teachers when it comes to the strike? For sure. Anubis says spending may be up, but the funding model change under Jason Kenney ensures that Alberta's spending will never accurately reflect the reality of population growth in this province. There's no province that's growing faster than Alberta, and that's a fact. And that's something I think that Alberta can be proud of. But I also do think that it comes with pain, and we're experiencing that. We're seeing it right now. Justin Evans says flat numbers don't mean anything if they're record-breaking, if the per capita spending doesn't keep up, or if it even goes down. He says the government is failing at its job, and they're spending less per student. I mean, there is a fact. That is a fact. Alberta is spending the least, although the minister making an argument on behalf of the government. You can let us know if you buy it. Let us know what you think. Again, we always welcome your feedback. Regardless of where you are in the political spectrum, regardless of how that lands, you don't have to have a kid in school to have an opinion on how education is funded in the province either, and I think that that's an important point to make. This is a conversation that I believe is most productive with a number of different viewpoints, and we want to make sure that our conversations have credibility and that they mean something, right? I read that email from Real Talker Jonny who described our echo chamber. I push back on that. I don't believe that there's an echo chamber here. I think if you look at the roster of guests that we feature on the show, I think if you look at the comments in our live chat and the email feedback that we receive, I think that you'll recognize very quickly that this audience is a broad and diverse audience with very different perspectives from issue to issue, from day to day. And that's something that we're really proud of. These conversations would not happen without our friends at Friesen Brothers. And as they celebrate 70 years, we want to show a lot of love to this team. This is a family-owned business that opened in 1955, a small butcher shop in Hinton, Alberta. Frank Loveson, the legend that established that. This company has now grown, doing unbelievable work in 16 different Alberta communities. And they've got a really fun event going on. You know that Friesen Brothers is not like a grocery store. I mean, sure, you can get groceries there. Can't say the word groceries without thinking about the U.S. president. Groceries. But Friesen Brothers, of course, in their fresh market stores in particular, so much more, as you can find out on the 14th and 15th of June at their all-you-can-eat Medieval Times buffet. This is going to be so much fun. And this is, by the way, a really fun way to observe Father's Day as well. If you don't yet have plans, make sure you block it off in your calendar. The 14th and 15th of June, travel back to Medieval Times at your local Friesen Brothers Fresh Market store. Join them for a special 2-day all-you-can-eat feast that's fit for a king from 4 to 8 p.m. both those days, the 14th and 15th of June. Medieval roasted chicken, smoked beef chuck, beer braised onions, herb roasted baby potatoes, garlic bread, their full salad bar, and a whole lot more. It's all you can eat for just $25 per person. That's the 14th and 15th of June from 4 to 8 p.m. All right. All this talk about education, it's kind of lighting a fire under us right now. And I know that to be true because of what I'm seeing here, but we are going to wrap this episode, and with our thanks for you being a part of it. The conversation will continue. That's the point we want to make, okay? Just because we did this interview, that doesn't wrap this conversation either. Remember, have your say. Here's your call to action. Google Alberta Library Survey, and you'll find it. We'll link to it in the show notes as well. Make sure you participate in the process. As they say, same as voting. If you don't participate, you lose your right to complain. We'll be back at it tomorrow. We hope to see you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jespersen, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harmon Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjespersen.com.